Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Today, we're taking a wild dive into the sheer mountains of cash and the honestly incredibly tangled relationships completely dominating the AI landscape right now. You know, you might just be firing up these AI tools to write a quick email or summarize a meeting, but behind the scenes, it is an absolute financial arms race. We're going to trace billions of dollars flowing all the way from federal courtrooms right into massive public offerings and uncover how the biggest players in tech are tied together in ways you probably wouldn't expect. $30 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. During day 4 of this highly publicized trial, OpenAI co-founder and president Greg Brockman took the stand and actually disclosed that his personal stake in the firm is worth nearly $30 billion. But what makes this figure literally jaw-dropping is the context. Brockman put exactly $0 of his own money into OpenAI at the start. I mean, talk about the ultimate return on investment, right? Naturally, this staggering valuation became the undeniable focal point of the cross-examination. Elon Musk's attorney, Stephen Mollo, absolutely hammered this specific question over and over a dozen times during a 2-hour window, actually. It basically became a courtroom catchphrase. It takes $30 billion to get you out of bed in the morning, but $1 billion doesn't get you out of bed in the morning? Mollo was aggressively pressing Brockman on whether he'd limit his compensation to $1 billion and just return the remaining $29 billion to the charity. Brockman's response that that's not what I'm saying was, technically correct, but under the bright lights of a jury trial, it really underscored the immense, almost unimaginable financial stakes at play here. And that brings us to a striking juxtaposition between the public mission and private thoughts. On one side, we have OpenAI's founding charter, right? Set up as a nonprofit aimed at benefiting humanity. But on the other side, we have a newly revealed entry from Brockman's own personal journal where he aspired to a personal wealth of $1 billion and flat out called the nonprofit commitment a lie. This strongly suggests that the massive commercial trajectory we're seeing wasn't just an unfortunate necessity or some accident along the way. It really looks like a deeply anticipated outcome right from day one. Okay, let's dive right into our first major section here, the allegiance email, also known as Exhibit B. The courtroom drama gets even messier when we start looking at the tangled web of corporate investments. This is what the lawyers are calling the allegiance email. It's a message sent by the head of Musk's family office, officially entered into evidence as Exhibit B. The email explicitly warns that Brockman's deep financial ties to OpenAI CEO Sam Altman meant that Brockman would naturally have a greater allegiance to Sam than to the nonprofit mission itself. In legal terms, they're presenting this as a smoking gun for a fiduciary breach. The whole argument is that you simply cannot objectively serve a nonprofit when your personal financial interests are just so heavily intertwined with its CEO. So the crucial question is, just how far do these financial ties extend? Well, the cross-examination mapped out Brockman's outside investments, revealing he holds stakes in Sam Altman's family office, a nuclear fusion startup called Helion Energy, and a chip startup called Cerebras. Now, I really want you to keep Cerebras in mind because that specific connection opens up an entirely new layer to this whole story. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the Cerebras IPO connection and how this tangled web expands. Let's zoom out from the trial for a second and look at the broader market. Because these personal relationships, they're creating massive financial ripple effects across the entire tech sector. Right as this trial was unfolding, Cerebras Systems filed their updated IPO paperwork for a NASDAQ listing, and the numbers are huge. They're planning to raise up to $3.5 billion, which would value the company at a staggering $26.6 billion. They're backing this up with $510 million in Q4 revenue, growing at 76% year over year. But the absolute standout figure here, the real kicker, is their anchor deal. It's a multi-year agreement with OpenAI for 750 megawatts of compute capacity valued at more than $20 billion. And this brilliantly illustrates the circular scale of this entire ecosystem. Just think about the sequence here. Step 1, the president of OpenAI, Greg Brockman, holds a personal stake in Cerebras. Step 2, OpenAI then commits $20 billion to Cerebras, essentially acting as their anchor customer. And step 3, Cerebras turns around and files for a $26.6 billion IPO. It really makes a federal courthouse feel kind of small when billions of dollars are just cycling through companies where the key players all hold mutual interests. But it is very important to note that the trial revelations weren't completely one-sided.
Elon Musk actually acknowledged in court that his own AI company, xAI, had used outputs from OpenAI's stronger models to train its own systems. This is a process known as distillation, and it's a critical fact to highlight because it definitely complicates Musk's positioning. You see, he's not just a wronged former benefactor of a nonprofit anymore. He is actively operating a competitive rival that benefited directly from OpenAI's technology.
Now let's shift gears to Section 3, the Enterprise Embedded Privet, and moving beyond the API.
Since we've seen the sheer scale of the money moving around these foundational AI models, we really need to look at how these massive valuations are driving identical, multi-billion-dollar strategic shifts in the real business world. We're seeing an incredible, almost institutionalized copycat pattern emerging right now. Anthropic just announced a $1.5 billion joint venture with financial titans like Blackstone and Goldman Sachs to deploy enterprise AI, and literally hours later, OpenAI followed up by announcing they were raising funds for The Deployment Company, which is a $10 billion venture backed by 19 investors. The scale difference is definitely notable, but the underlying logic is exactly the same.
Both of these companies are adopting what's called forward deployed engineering. What does that mean? Well, instead of just selling a company access to an API and saying, good luck, they're embedding their own engineering teams directly inside client organizations. They want to build tools that fit right into existing workflows. This is the exact same model that built Palantir into a $90 billion company, and it signifies that the simple API era of enterprise AI is officially coming to an end. So what this means for you is that instead of your company just handing you a login to an AI chatbot, these incredibly powerful systems are about to be hardwired directly into the software you use every single day.
Which brings us to our fourth and final section, agentic AI security risks. A major security alert. Let's see how this all builds into real-world consequences. Because as these embedded engineering teams rush to integrate AI directly into the core workflows of the world's biggest corporations, international security agencies are actively sounding the alarm. In fact, a severe joint guidance was issued today by the cybersecurity agencies of the Five Eyes nations. That's the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And listen, when these 5 allied nations get together to issue a joint advisory, it means the threat is immediate, and it is global.
Their specific warning is that agentic AI systems, these autonomous agents that we are rapidly embedding into enterprises everywhere, introduce massive new risks. The guidance firmly stresses that autonomous agents absolutely must be treated as highly security-sensitive systems, especially when you start giving them access to tools, credentials, and production environments. They actually directly cited the recent incident where an AI agent accidentally wiped a live database for pocket rows as exactly the kind of catastrophic failure we need to prevent.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of today's explainer. We've traced this incredible, interconnected wealth from Brockman's $30 billion stake to $26 billion IPOs and these massive deployment ventures. But as these billions are being poured into accelerating autonomous embedded AI, we really have to ask, is the sheer speed of this financial arms race completely outpacing our ability to actually secure the technology? It's a critical question to keep in mind as we watch this industry totally reshape our work and our world. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you next time.